I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.
There we go. What's going on, man?
Is.
It's been a while. I had to get back in the swing of it here. Man, we're back on another damn fantasy podcast, feeling like champions. Trevor, how are we doing, my guy?
On top of the world. Big champions, man. It's been a heck of a couple of weeks. Obviously, seeing our favorite team, the Chiefs, win the Super Bowl. Getting to go downtown and celebrating the parade with my 7-year-old was just phenomenal. Like something, obviously, when we were kids, even if we could have, the Chiefs never won, so we never had that opportunity.
Right.
So to be able to take my oldest down there and hopefully, over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll get that a couple more times.
First of many, man.
Start taking the rest of the boys down there celebrating in the parade. But no, it was awesome, man. There were people everywhere. It was crazy to see the amount of people down there. But just we've kind of talked pre-show. It's been a little bit of a lull here and had to get it recharged and take some time off. But to be able to say like our team is the one that won the championship going, for the next year, we can say that is just pretty awesome.
Any season where the team you root for wins a championship and your fantasy team wins a championship, I mean, that's got to be like the highest of highs.
I don't know. Great next preseason, right?
Yeah, you get to grab some Super Bowl gear for your squad, and then you get to get your hardware, if put something on your finger with your last name just to prove, hey, man, I'm ready for this draft now. You got that ring on. Right. So, man, I love it. I love everything about it. This year has been phenomenal. This year was phenomenal. I'm ready for 2023, man.
Already. And there's going to be a lot that happens between now and then, even with the Chiefs. But, obviously fantasy football wise, there'll be a ton that goes on. There's so many cuts already that have taken place. A lot of free agents out there. Who's going to be tagged? Who won't be? It's going to be a wild March.
Absolutely. And I'm so geared up for it. It's perfect that March 1st landed on the day when we usually do the show anyway, because that's like the whole league year system, right? It's like they open the tag deadline. That'll close on the 7th. Then we go right into the 15th, which is when the new league year opens. And that's when all those contracts that they negotiate during the tampering period become official. And so that's when you can start putting your materials together, not just for that fantasy draft, the rookie draft, if you're in a dynasty league, but you can start putting your rankings together and getting a feel for what the makeup of these teams are going to be. And even with the coaching changes that kind of came through, after the Super Bowl was wrapped up, I think a lot of that's going to have an impact on, what kind of offense they're going to run, who's going to be the focal point whenever they bring these free agents in. The trade market is wide open. It's for the real teams, not for even just for your dynasty teams. For these real teams, they're going to be moving these players, and I'm expecting kind of a maybe not as wild as last offseason where we saw a wide receiver trade every single week. But it's going to be something that, definitely we'll see a shakeup for sure.
R.I.P. Tyreek missing out on that Super Bowl ring this year, baby.
I wish he was here for it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100% there. if you're with us today, thank you. Thank you for being with us. A couple weeks off and you're here watching live. We appreciate that a ton. Hit that like button and jump in the comments. We love to interact with all of you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your hot takes. And we've already got the hot takes rolling in here, Dan. 2 of them. The best quarterback in the draft is going to be the kid from Kentucky. And I still think Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers to the Jets makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Man, that Jets offense would be humming for fantasy football.
They would be.
They had a guy like Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely. No, I think Rodgers is a great fit for New York. A couple of teams actually have come out and said that they have no interest in trading for Rodgers. Now, that could be smoke. We've seen GMs put the smoke show out before so that they can put a little guys up for what their real plan is. But I think the quote was something along the lines of they don't want a nearly 40-year-old kind of bridge quarterback situation. They'd rather put their young guy in a situation to get experience on the field as opposed to learning from a distance, which, I've seen cases where both situations can work, but, I definitely think Rodgers could be a good fit in New York. I think he's due for a change of scenery, and we already know what he looks like in green, so that'd be an easy transition on the eyes.
And let's be honest, like, we've seen your young quarterback, New York. We know what Zach Wilson is all about. Like, what else do you need to see from him right now? It's not that great. But you have great guys around him. We also have seen what Garrett Wilson can do with guys like Joe Flacco throwing in the ball. We've seen, what Breece Hall brought to the table. Like, you have a really good offense built around a quarterback there. So why, even if it is 2 years, who cares? Like, you're going for the Super Bowl. You're going for a championship. Obviously you want to build for the future too.
Right.
But you've got some great guys on rookie contracts right now. You might as well try to go for it. I think that's the opposite of what some teams try to do. They try to get a really good quarterback on a rookie contract and then pay the veterans. But if you've already got the rookies around him, then pay the veteran at quarterback. Either way, I think New York needs a new quarterback, and I do think Aaron Rodgers will move on eventually.
Yeah.
We just got some Will Levis talk here, the guy from Kentucky. Negative ghostwriter on Levis. AR-15 has the best talent. Just needs a great situation to win. AR-15.
It's Anthony Richardson out of Florida. So my thing on him is like, I'm sure he's a talented kid, but we just really didn't see a ton from him in the college season for me to be on the hype train with everybody else coming into the NFL draft. I think Levis obviously is a big name quarterback. He had some flashes during the college season last year where maybe it wasn't quite up to that standard of what you thought it was going to be going in, especially in SEC play where it's so tough. But you also have, Bryce and CJ Stroud that's kind of in the mix. So as far as Richardson goes, man, he's getting a lot of hype right now. And I don't know how much of it is legitimate hype or kind of what we alluded to earlier, where these GMs are putting the smoke show up so that someone else maybe bites on this prospect and keeps them in a position to grab the quarterback that they want. So I don't know. This quarterback class definitely, I think they have all shown that they can do work on the field. But I don't know that any of them have shown that they can be the Trevor Lawrence type of quarterback coming out where they're, the clear cut number one. It's really kind of an even field in my opinion. But the Anthony Richardson thing kind of came out of left field for me.
Yeah, I think that all four. I think Bryce Young and CJ Stroud would be up there in most classes. I think Richardson and Levis are up there because there's not a lot of depth here.
Yeah,
like that's what I think, right? I think that you put these guys in a class of, a couple of years back, and they're probably fourth rounders.
Yeah, put him in the 2020 class with Burrow and Tua.
Exactly, right? Like they're just probably fourth rounders, fifth rounders maybe. But that's not to say they can't be good NFL talent. I think that they're obviously going to have a shot. I believe that, we'll get into kind of as we get closer to draft talk, like where's the best situations for these quarterbacks. So kind of going back to the idea of like just needs a great situation to win. Like I think any four of these guys can win in the right situation. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that in April when we're actually getting closer to the draft of where these guys could go to really make them great NFL players, but also, fantasy relevant for us, because right now I'm not really excited about this class at all in terms of fantasy relevancy. But that's probably more conversation down the line. I think we probably need to talk more about some veterans right now.
Yeah.
Some guys that got cut this week already. So, we already talked a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and their trades, but there's other guys out there. So let's maybe talk in sophomore quarterbacks. I don't mind that, right? Think Ritter, sophomore quarterback jump. I think there's a lot in Atlanta that's going to potentially, we'll see a lot more success this year with Desmond Ritter and Drake London. He's on the list for a question we have later on. For me, Kyle Pitts get back,
Get
this
him
Atlanta
healthy
team could be
again.
good.
Yeah. No, and then Algier obviously is going to add a nice element in the backfield now that he's seasoned up a little bit. At the end of last year, he freaking showed out. He might have been a league winner for a lot of people,
Take on some offensive line help. I mean, whether it's through the draft or free agency.
Absolutely, and they'll have some options in free agency. I just hope there's a rumor floating around, and we can get to trade candidates in a minute. But maybe I'll just save that point for when we get to that point in the show. But players cut, we'll start with quarterbacks, and Atlanta is one of those players one of those teams that cut a player.
Yep.
Mariota gets the axe, saves them about $12 million in cap space, which I think everybody saw the writing on the wall for that move. Didn't make a ton of sense for him to be on the roster longer than just last year, especially, I think Tyler, is that who dropped the comment in there about Ritter ascending to that, making that jump? If the Falcons believe in him the way that, you think that's going to happen, then they have to get rid of Mariota, because then you've got a distraction kind of situation. You kind of want to, I think if it were me, you want to give him the keys and say, this is your offense, spend the offseason building a rapport with your weapons, and then we'll get you some more help in the draft and free agency. And let's come into 2023 in a wide open NFC South and see what we can do.
Yeah, exactly what the Chiefs did with Alex Smith.
Right.
And Patrick Mahomes, right? Now, they knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to play the first year. Desmond Ritter played a little bit last year, but as soon as that season was ended, Alex Smith moved on to open it up. There's no quarterback controversy. I do think that, teams in general should take that approach a little bit more and give their young guys that chance. We can talk about San Francisco all day long when they've got two quarterbacks they don't know what to do with, and they're already talking about a veteran quarterback coming in. Like, it just muddies the water and doesn't really give these young quarterbacks the confidence that we've seen for guys like Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. And, the list goes on right now with some of these young quarterbacks who have been given the keys. The veteran has moved on. This is your team. So for Atlanta to cut Marcus Mariota, I think really helps Desmond Ritter right now. Okay, it's your team. Go get better. Get ready for this season. Carson Wentz and Derek Carr are two other quarterbacks that got cut. We kind of saw the Derek Carr thing that was coming. That's been talked about all season. He doesn't even play or show up the last 2 weeks there in Las Vegas. And then Carson Wentz, I assume, ends up being a veteran backup somewhere, probably, not necessarily going to be a guy that we'll talk a lot about for fantasy purposes next year. I did see a rumor that he could be late, or his odds are favored to land in Kansas City, which he's no Chad Henne, but I don't know. I guess if you need a spot start here and there, he's shown the ability to do it in the past. But I mean, I don't know. He would obviously strictly be a backup and trying to resurrect his career to go be a starter somewhere else. Why not learn under Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be nothing but a benefit for him. Nick Foles, right? He had that situation where he, comes to Kansas City, backs up Alex Smith for a year, and then he goes to Philly and wins the Super Bowl. So, I mean, that whole situation played out for him really well. For me personally, I don't know. I'm sure Carson Wentz is a good dude, but it just seems like he never really truly gets along with his teammates.
Yeah.
Can't really build that rapport. But it was a similar situation in Washington where, they're handing the keys to Sam Howell a little bit, giving him an opportunity to succeed. And I've also seen rumors of Carson Wentz going to Carolina to reunite with Frank Reich again. So, we'll see what happens with him. Obviously, Derek Carr, I think, is a better quarterback in this situation. If you're looking at the three of them, and he has the best legitimate chance of those three guys to make a fantasy football impact. And there we go. Visited the Jets today. He's also been in Indianapolis, where the combine is getting ready to start up. And he's been talking with a ton of different executives, and he's met with the Panthers and Saints as well since he's been cut. So Jets, Saints, and Panthers all looking like viable options. I think the first domino that has to fall, though, is Aaron Rodgers and figuring out what he's going to do.
Yeah, I think all the teams are going to prioritize Rodgers over Derek Carr.
Right.
And because of that, Derek Carr is just going to be a sitting duck just waiting until something happens there. Now, we did see Rodgers come out and said a couple days away from hearing a decision. But I think Derek Carr's doing his due diligence and doing what he needs to be doing, getting out there, visiting with teams, being around the combine and all the scouts, and just being a part of the NFL still, right? He's not going off into a 4-day dark retreat. He's going to the NFL and being around the NFL because he wants to be the starting quarterback somewhere. And I think he will be the starting quarterback somewhere. And depending on where it is, I think it'll have fantasy implications, positively or negatively. It will have fantasy implications.
100%. I think all of these places, they have a viable number one receiver. The Saints, at least for now, do with Chris Olave maybe being the number one.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with Michael Thomas. But
it's Olave either way, right?
I think so. I think he really showed what he could do last year, man. But Derek Carr, he's proven that he can get the ball out to those guys. If they're the number one, they're usually getting a high volume of targets. I think that carries a lot of weight in fantasy aspects. Obviously, Derek Carr is better than Andy Dalton. So Chris Olave, that would be a boost to his value. Same with Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Carr's an upgrade over Zach Wilson. And then DJ Moore, man, maybe he has the season I thought he was going to have last year with Derek Carr under center.
When is he going to have this season? We've been waiting for it. He needs to get a quarterback, man. He needs to get a quarterback. That's for sure.
I just thought that we were going to trade for him a while back, but never.
That would be
happened.
Nice too. That would be nice too. If they can't get a quarterback, maybe just get the Chiefs on him. There's a he used to be a stud running back. He was a washed up running back. Then he became a stud running back, and now he's another cut running back, and that's Leonard Fournette. Fat Lenny, playoff Lenny, whatever you want to call him. He's had his sparks in his years and his career. Obviously, most of that in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, but even thinking back when he was a rookie in Jacksonville, was really, really good, highly touted coming out of college, out of LSU there. But now, I don't know. Like, I assume he's going to end up with some type of veteran type salary. I don't think anybody's going to, sign him long term. But would he have some fantasy relevancy, do you think, depending on where he lands?
I mean, he's definitely past the window for, one of those prime contracts, especially for a running back. You just don't see it anymore. I think a lot of these teams are learning their lesson. But if he's going to a team, I think he definitely can provide some value there. He'll get some viable touches. Maybe he has a Jamal Williams type of role with whatever team he goes to next, where he's really active in the red zone. And, maybe they have another pass catcher on the team that kind of handles the between the 20s work. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I see his role at this point. He is a big, strong runner. So I think he can make that impact in the goal line situations for sure. As far as like a
Jerick McKinnon type role.
I mean, he can be a pass catcher too.
He pass catcher inside the 20s. He's a trusted running back, good pass blocker.
Right.
Something there.
He's a vet. He's won a Super Bowl. I mean, that's a leadership quality too.
Yeah, I don't know where he will land, but I do think that depending on where he lands, I think he could have some fantasy value.
And that's what I was going to say is I don't know a fit that sticks out to me.
Nothing quite yet. Lenny to the boys, if they cut Zeke, I don't think they're going to cut Zeke. I think Jerry Jones, man, he has this huge crush on Zeke, and he's not letting that man go.
I don't know if he just reminds him of Emmitt Smith in some way or something. I don't know.
What's the latest on Akers? I haven't really seen a lot on Cam Akers. Have you seen anything?
No, I haven't necessarily, but he definitely got involved in the offense again towards the end of the year last year, and it seemed to me that he was, the prime option. They have that young, who's their rookie running back that they had last year?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Your head?
I do not, but because they end up getting rid of Darrell Williams.
Yeah.
Was it Williams? Darrell?
Darrell Williams was with the Cardinals
Not
last
that
year.
one.
Henderson.
Darrell
Yeah.
Henderson. They ended up getting rid of Darrell Henderson there, and I do know they drafted somebody late in the draft last year. Let's take a look at this.
Williams sounds right for his last name, though. That other
Kyron, Kyron Williams. You're right.
Yeah.
Drafted fifth, sixth round, somewhere in that 5th round pick of 2022. So,
and he got involved a little bit too, and I think maybe they'll keep it 2-head with them two guys. Yeah, I just don't see them bringing in any other help. They're kind of strapped. The Rams are in a weird situation where they're going to have to figure out a lot more than running back. I don't think running back's going to be high on the priority list as far as bringing in, any kind of competition. You might want to keep status quo if you're.
Yeah, you got 2 guys on a rookie contract.
They have
2 guys who can get it done.
They have a ton of cap issues right now, a ton that they have to sort through.
Yes, that they do. Another big game out of Notre Dame. All right, cool.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. And then another former Ram, Robert Woods, he got cut from the Titans, and Kenny Golladay joined him, getting cut from the Giants. So we're
these
adding
guys are
to that
just
receiver
guys
market
at this point, right? They're going to be guys who are going to be like 3rd and 4th guys on teams at this point in their careers, right? Like Kenny Golladay, did he even catch a ball last year?
He caught a touchdown in the final game. His only touchdown as a Giant.
He got paid so much money. I just don't see. I don't know if he's gonna really be able to land a job that's gonna get him on the field much. Robert Woods probably a little bit more. Tennessee has a lot of cap issues. Tennessee is really kind of stuck. Like, what do? Do you go all in on a rebuild, or do you try to go after it again this year? You know what I mean? I think they have a lot to decide this year, but
right. And they'll get Harold Landry back, which will help. But
yeah, Robert Woods could. Yeah, we drafted him in that 32-team league.
I know.
Like a week later, that was tough, man. That was tough.
We got ravaged. I blame the injury bug.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we lost Murray at the end of the year. And
Goddard was out for a few games. Hollywood Brown. I mean, couldn't catch a break.
Not at all. I was going to look up some. I'm going to pull up a little salary cap since we're kind of talking about that a little bit, just to have it in the background. I wanted to go back to this comment real fast because I thought Cam Akers was still on he's still young enough to be on a rookie contract, right?
I'm pretty sure he is on his rookie deal. He was drafted in 2020. And,
yeah, for sure he's on his rookie deal still.
Yeah,
he's only got a 1.15 cap hit this year, so that's not bad at all. That's not bad for running backs.
No,
you're bringing in $1.9 million cap hit this year.
You're bringing in veterans for like double that.
Yeah,
and he's got fresh legs.
The Tennessee cut. Oh yeah, that's right. They did cut him.
Yep.
They cut last week. And we're going to talk. I'll let you kind of give your piece on Derrick Henry that I know you got going on, and then Kenny Golladay should have retired like a long time ago. But yes,
yeah.
I mean, when you're making that much money to do nothing at all, why would you retire? But now that you're cut, probably is time to.
And he's still got some paychecks coming from the Giants, I'm sure. Usually when you get cut, there's some guarantees in there that are keeping you paid.
Oh, yeah. Why don't we talk about some other cut candidates that we think could be cut? And then we'll talk some free agents.
Yeah. So, Tannehill, obviously, with the Titans having their situation,
a little bit,
they could release him for about $17 million in cap space.
Again, very simple. We just talked about, right? Give the keys, like veteran, move on.
Right.
It is not yours. It's Malik Willis's team now. Whether or not they're willing to do that or not, we'll still find out. But
that would be a puzzling move to me. But
Tannehill is like, what is he, 34?
Probably
like
34, 35. That sounds right.
He's up there ways. If they've got a lot of trouble, if they're up against the salary cap, I think he's a good cut candidate. Another veteran, Matt Ryan. I saw some rumblings about potentially keeping him around for the rookie that they're going to draft. It's a new regime, though. I assume he'll probably end up being cut. And then Jameis. What do you think about Jameis in New Orleans? What's going on there?
Well, New Orleans has to make some cuts as well and try and figure out a few things to get back under the cap limit. At least last I looked, that was the case. So cutting him, I want to say, gets you double digits back. 10 million plus. I say double digits. I should have said 8 figures, but it gets you that money back. So, with Jameis, if he is cut, he'll definitely have suitors. I think there's a real opportunity for him to catch on somewhere. Even to go back to Tampa, I think would be a good situation for him. It's a situation he's familiar with. He has rapport with those wide receivers out there. But, I don't know what the Saints are going to do with that whole deal. That's going to be one to monitor for sure, because they're also in a position where they could go full on rebuild, right?
Yep.
They've got a lot of veteran players that can get them plenty of draft capital. And with what you saw last year from the team, I don't know that you really feel 100% confident that that's going to be a roster that gets you to the playoffs, let alone contend for a championship. So,
yeah, and you've got Alvin Kamara probably suspended 6 games this next year due to his issues in Las Vegas
minimum
2 years ago. So yeah, I think a nice rebuild probably, man, the NFC South is just going to suck again. I might look at what the Falcons winning the South would be. What would it pay out if I laid it right now? Because
what kind of net can we get from that?
Yeah, like seriously, I think that's probably that's the team that looks like they're going in the right direction. Anyways, out of all 4 of those teams, do you trust Willis? I agree. I do think that Tennessee and Mike Vrabel are kind of concerned, but I don't know if I trust him. But I think from fantasy football, like, he does everything we want. He runs the ball. And so from a fantasy perspective,
right,
if he's the starting quarterback going into next year, he probably sits around quarterback 15, 16 ranking wise, just because he uses his legs. And we'll see. Like, I don't think I trusted Jalen Hurts. I know I didn't trust Jalen Hurts his first year, right?
Yeah.
But look what he did. We didn't trust Josh Allen his first season either. Now look what he's done. So these guys can, once they get into these NFL locker rooms and this training and these coaches, like, things can definitely change with players, especially if they're special. And right now, I don't know if we know if Willis is special or not.
Right. But it's, another year in the system, another year to get familiar with those players you're throwing the ball to. I don't know how much of it was Willis compared to the weapons that he had, right? It's not like he was throwing to any all-world receivers or like he had a viable tight end as an outlet there. Although what's the young kid that was catching passes from the tight end position towards the end of the season kind of showed some flashes. But it's definitely a situation that I'm interested in, but not enough to really take a flyer on him necessarily if I'm drafting. That's a guy that you can, plug something in on the waivers if you, get somebody hurt early in the season, or if you need to pick up a quarterback in a pinch early on. That's somebody you can add quickly. I think he'll be available in a lot of leagues.
Absolutely. We got another question here around players. Do you think Dak will rework his contract? And before we answer this, I just want to keep throwing in the questions, guys. We've got plenty of things to talk about, but we will also just answer questions all night long. For me, anyways, I love this, and I don't mind talking salary caps and contracts. So keep sending in those questions. Hit that like button if you're with us. Thank you for being here, and
appreciate it.
Dan, what do you think? Does Dak rework his contract currently? I don't have the contract stuff up. He's currently got a base salary of $31 million.
Yeah, that's pretty low for a quarterback of his stature. As far as the restructuring, it'll really depend on how much of that is guaranteed versus not. That's what gives teams the ability to restructure and have that cap flexibility. Is those guarantees and being able to shuffle them down the line a little bit, or convert them into salary bonuses or roster bonuses. I'm sure, I haven't heard of him restructuring necessarily, but I'm sure if there's an instance where it's like, hey, we need to get this player, they're going to help you win a championship, then I don't see a reason for him not to enter into that agreement to restructure, because in a lot of cases, it just means you get your money right away instead of having to wait for it. So without looking at the contract and seeing exactly what the structure of it is, I feel like that possibility is there. But it's hard to say with the Cowboys situation, and I think they have a lot of moves to make.
Yeah, right now he's got 95 fully guaranteed on a 4-year, $160 million contract. So he's pushing about $50 million towards the cap hit each and every year. So I could see him trying to move some of that to just guaranteed money, just so it doesn't hit the cap as much.
And an extension could help that too, right? If they want to extend him, they can push some of that down the line that way as well.
Yeah, and I think that he, compared to the 45, Jones wants it. I think, honestly, Jerry Jones, if he could, he would just pay him as much money as he could. Right. But that's what's great about the salary cap in the NFL is it does keep them all a little bit closer, and it also increased significantly in 2023. So
20 million.
Some of these teams have a lot of extra money just because of that too. But yeah, this is something Mahomes does every single year. He restructures his contract every offseason. And most every time it's just simply moving the money from a salary hit to a guaranteed or a cash bonus, something there. So that way the team doesn't get hit against the salary cap.
Right.
It's all business at that point. And who knows, maybe I don't think it's going to be anything significant if he does. Because I think that he already re-signed a 4-year, $160 million contract maybe 2 years ago. So it doesn't seem like he's going to sign another big one right now.
Well, what we've seen the Chiefs do too is they stagger those big cap hits, right? If the quarterback has a big one, then the next year the quarterback's cap hit goes down. Like if you were to look at Patrick Mahomes' cap for the next 6 years, it alternates from like 56, 57 million, then drops down to like 42. And that's just giving you that $17 million of flexibility every other year. And the players they're signing are giving them that flexibility as well so that they can play within those confines. So it's all about finding team players and, figuring out a way to still get them paid at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But tons of other free agents here that or potential free agents rather, guys that could get cut. Joe Mixon, Zeke, one of those guys. Chase Edmonds, he had, I think, $6 million in savings the Broncos could get, but I think they're intent on keeping him at least at this point. And then in the wide receiver room, we've seen the field is barren, basically, in wide receiver at that position compared to all the other ones, especially running back. I mean, they're loaded up there. But Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Corey Davis, and Adam Thielen all could count towards significant cap savings for teams that are kind of in a bit of a pickle. The Chargers in particular, they've got a Justin Herbert extension coming up.
Yep, absolutely. And it's you hit the nail on the head when you said it's a bare field right now for the wide receivers. And we're talking Robert Woods, Kenny Galladay, Corey Davis, Adam Thielen. These teams aren't necessarily jumping at these guys. Like it is going to be, a guy like Keenan Allen, if he is cut, which I agree. I don't think that he gets cut. Like I think there's probably 85% chance he doesn't get cut, but it's more than a 0% chance that he could get cut, especially knowing the salary savings and the Justin Herbert extension. They bring in the new offensive coordinator from Dallas, Kellen Moore. They're trying to figure this thing out and build around Justin Herbert. Keenan Allen's 29 years old. It might be time for him to go. But if he does go, he's going to be a hot commodity. He will be one of the highest paid wide receivers this offseason. I don't know. There's a lot of buzz around Jacoby Myers and how good of a wide receiver this guy really is. He just hasn't seen it, apparently. I'm seeing a lot of buzz around him, getting a surprise contract, something like a Christian Kirk where nobody really expected it. But here's Jacoby Myers getting that contract. But Keenan Allen, I think, could get significant payday, over a 3-year, 4-year contract, being 29 years old and kind of ending his career somewhere else, if that is the case.
Absolutely. And the Chargers, they can maybe make that work, without seeing their cap situation. If they want to extend him for 2 years, they can move some of that money down the line and keep him on the team for the rest of his career. He could retire a Charger if he wanted to. So, those are all options that are on the table for sure with him. The other guys, I mean, Michael Thomas, I think there's a really good chance he restructured before the end of the season. It made it really friendly for the Saints to kind of let him walk. If potentially if they want to cut him or trade him, they have some outs basically in the massive contract that he signed. And then Corey Davis really hasn't lived up to the contract that he signed in New York either. So I think there's a really good chance for him to get going, especially with the Jets having Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore. They still have Denzel Mims in the stable and could potentially bring in some more talent in that room. So, those are all viable.
Michael Thomas, they've had some issues in the past as well, right? You remember going back to 2021 and the injury and all the rumors that surrounded this injury of him not wanting to come back and play because it was the organization had issues. And so these two sides have had issues already. And so now having an opportunity to kind of, wash their hands of Michael Thomas and move on. I mean, this was one of the greatest wide receivers in the game at one point in his career.
Yeah.
So could he go somewhere and resurrect his career? I think he would be interested in doing that as well. So whether it's a cut or a trade, whatnot, I could see a high probability that Michael Thomas is not a New Orleans Saints player in 2023.
Yeah.
Some tight ends out there as well coming up, right? Hunter Henry. That was the free agent. So cut candidates is Hunter Henry. I guess he's probably the only one out there that we're looking at actually getting cut. So some of these other guys I think will move on from where they're at right now. But Hunter Henry there in New England, I don't know. I've never really been a big fan of him from a fantasy perspective. So it's kind of just a guide to me.
Yeah, he could save the organization $10 million if they cut him. And the Patriots are another one of those teams that are in a little bit of a tough situation with the cap. We saw their spending spree a couple years ago with all the offensive weapons and skill players that they brought in on those massive ass contracts. Hunter Henry being one of those guys that they brought in with Jonnu Smith. So, I don't know if he's on the roster there. If he ends up leaving, I think he can make an impact somewhere. But, since he had that one big year with the Chargers, I haven't really seen much from him that's, stuck out to me either. But these guys that are free agents, there's some quality tight ends here. And these guys are already free agents. There's no if they're going to be about it.
Let's why don't we run through? We'll start with tight ends. Why don't we run through the free agents kind of quickly, and then we'll get to our hot takes. We gotta have some hot takes tonight.
Yes,
We've been
sir.
off for too long not to throw out some hot takes for the listeners.
I know we gotta have some receipts to pull back on once the season gets geared up. So free agent,
or something to bury,
Right, exactly. So, something to cut from the internet if we can, but internet's forever. Dalton Schultz, big name tight end right there. We're talking top 5 potential tight end, which at that position, such a premium, of course. The Cowboys have already come out. They said they do not want to tag him. I think that tag is going to be reserved for another guy that we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But Dalton Schultz, a big name. Evan Ingram, who had a really, really quality season. Nice season with Jacksonville Jaguars. Hayden Hurst, who developed a nice little rapport with Joe Burrow. And then Jawan Johnson, who caught 5 touchdowns from Andy Dalton as a Saint. And then Mike Gesicki, who pretty much faded out of the offense, but we know that he's still a viable receiver and has the skill set to go and contend for, that number 1 spot on a roster and be a contributor, which, starting with Gesicki, I'd love to see him in Kansas City. Could you imagine if we brought him in with Kelsey? I think that skill set would pair well with each other.
Yeah, and Kansas City loves their tight end, so they'll take as many as they can get, honestly. I think that Noah Gray is fine though in Kansas City if he's gonna stick around for a while. I think as Kansas City as Chiefs fans, we're all kind of like, who's gonna be the next Travis Kelce?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like baseball reference. I'm a Cardinals fan, and everybody wants to know who's the next Yachty for
Who's
so
Yachty?
many years. Who's gonna take over for Yachty? And it's like every catcher that came through the system in St. Louis, it was like, this guy's going to take over for Yachty. This guy's like, nobody's going to be Yachty. It's just, when you're
One
that
of a
great,
kind.
nobody's going to be Travis Kelce, right?
One of a kind.
But in this offense, you can absolutely be viable and you can be productive because of the offense, because of the quarterback. So if that's Mike Gesicki, like, bring him on. I do think from a fantasy perspective, like, I think Evan Ingram probably stays in Jacksonville. Signing that 1-year deal was probably the best thing for him because now he's going to get paid. I think he'll get paid, whether that's a tag or a long-term extension, whatnot. But really, for me, it's Mike Gesicki. I want to see, because we've seen flashes of this guy in the past. Juwan Johnson, I think's kind of just a guy that caught a lot of touchdown passes. Hayden Hurst has been around a while. We've seen him at multiple places. He's never really become a prominent fantasy guy, but I think Gesicki has a chance to be more prominent in the fantasy aspect of the football game, right? So getting him in a place that will utilize him. Miami's not going to utilize tight ends. They're going to go through Hill and Waddle, and they should go through Hill and Waddle. So
they just need some blockers at tight end there.
Tyler says Dalton out of Dallas. Hendershot, yeah, I forgot about Hendershot a little bit, and Ferguson's always kind of been lurking, but
yeah,
if you remember, like, Dalton Schultz became a thing because some other tight end who was supposed to be the guy got hurt.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name.
Jarwin, was that his name, or Gavin Escobar?
Blake Jarwin's been around. There was another guy that was Tyler. Tyler's a Dallas fan. Tell us in the chat, like, who this guy. There was a tight end that I was like, this is gonna be the guy. Was it Blake Jarwin? And then he got hurt, and then Dalton Schultz became the guy. It was like, but that could have been Blake Jarwin all season long. I remember that guy. So I don't know. I just say that because, Dalton Schultz has been great, but I don't think Dallas is like in love with the guy enough to bring him back, especially they have those guys. So Evan Ingram in Jacksonville, I think, is definitely going to be where they're at.
Yeah.
Let's transition to some wide receivers. The Chiefs on the board here with Juju. OBJ still out there somewhere. We don't know where, but he's out there, right? He's still a free agent. Alan Lazard, Mecole Hardman, Darius Slayton, the aforementioned Jacoby Myers, and DJ Chark. Let's start with our Chiefs guys here. What are your thoughts on Juju and Hardman? Should the Chiefs bring either of those guys back? And then we'll kind of talk through the rest of these guys.
Should they? I mean, I would love to see both of these guys back in Kansas City. I think that'd be great for the offense. Hardman, obviously, he has a very specific role in our offense, and you could tell down the stretch that we were missing that player, especially with Tony and Sky Moore and them not really being fully healthy, or Sky Moore still a rookie. He's getting adjusted to the game still. We were missing that component that he brings to the field. For Juju, however, I thought he was great. He was a great safety valve for Patrick Mahomes. He ran great routes. He was actually pretty sure-handed for the most part. We've seen him drop some balls in the past. I would love for us to bring them both back, but the key word here is if we can. I think that's a key phrase that we got to look at too, because the market is thin, right?
Yeah.
So that means these players that are, if they were free agents last year, they maybe get a couple million less than what they're going to get this year. Juju is going to get paid. He is the best and most sure receiver on the market right now. So it's going to be about, how willing is he to take the pay cut to stay here in Kansas City. Anything over 12 million a year, I think, gets Juju out of Kansas City. So if he can stay under that threshold as far as like the average annual value, I think there's a good chance for him to stay. Because Mahomes and him, he was 1,000-yard receiver damn near. I mean, he was like 17 yards away or something like that. But I think of the two, Hardman's most likely to be the one that finds a new team.
Yeah, I'm not in lockstep with you. I hope Hardman finds a new team. I think he's trash. He's been around for 4 years and never done a dang thing for the Chiefs. He's always got all this talent, but where has it actually become production on the field? Even, this year, Tyreek's gone. It's going to be Hardman's team. They have to go trade for Kadarius Toney because Hardman can't get it done. They draft Sky Moore because they don't trust I think it's time for Hardman to go. I think that there's been some issues in the locker room with Mecole Hardman. I don't really see a lot of that interaction on the sideline where you see with some other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, yeah, whatever. Hardman can go. I like Juju back in Kansas City if that is a possibility. I'm just not sure, like you said, if that will end up as a possibility there. But if he can, I would like him there. I think that he really started to build a rapport with Patrick Mahomes towards the end of the season. I wasn't really on board early in the year, but he started to come on even later, and he just showed up when it mattered.
Yeah.
And he was relatively healthy all year, which I wanted to be able to see that too. So hopefully he can. Some of these other guys, we talked about Jacoby Myers potentially being the Christian Kirk of this class per se, right? OBJ is a wild card. Alan Lazard, I mean, he had a chance this year to really show up, and I don't think that he really did where he could have. I think Darius Slayton is kind of just a guy, and I think DJ Chark is probably going to be a third or fourth guy somewhere. So fantasy value-wise, I'm really monitoring Jacoby Myers and Juju out of this list here. I'll let you run through the running backs.
Yeah, running backs, man. Wow. It's just insanely deep and talented for that group. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, obviously those guys were, two of the top 5 fantasy football running backs. Tony Pollard up there in the top 10 as well. Miles Sanders was pretty great
this ain't
last year.
We're not the Packers West.
Yeah. Kareem Hunt is going to come out and, he'll be able to contribute. Jamal Williams led the league in touchdowns last year with 17 rushing touchdowns. And then David Montgomery in Chicago, free agent, and Alexander Madison, who's proven to be a solid number 2 in Minnesota. I mean, all of these guys can go on a team and make an immediate impact. Not just for the game purposes and winning it on the field, but for winning it on your fantasy team.
Yeah.
I think all of these guys can be dual threat outside of maybe Jamal Williams, and he is a touchdown machine. He's like LeGarrette Blount 2.0. So, all of these guys are definitely.
But who actually changes teams, right? Like, I think Saquon, Jacobs, Pollard probably hit the tag, right?
Yep.
But Kareem Hunt walks. Jamal Williams has already come out and said he wants to play in Detroit. Detroit's already come out and said we want Jamal Williams back. So I don't see a reason why Jamal wouldn't go back to Detroit. So I think it really like Miles Sanders and David Montgomery and Kareem Hunt are the 3. They're the 3 hot commodities out of this group, I think. Kareem Hunt probably not as much, but Miles Sanders, I could see Philadelphia moving on from him. They've got a couple other running backs on the team, on the roster already that they're paying next year. There's no reason to overpay for a guy like Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
In
they
Philly.
Can draft someone.
They can draft somebody, absolutely. But so I think Miles Sanders and David Montgomery out of this group and Kareem Hunt, but those 2 are the cream of the crop for the running backs that I think they'll actually hit the market. I would just be pretty surprised if Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard are not tagged or signed.
I think those guys are and we'll know by March 7th what these teams are going to do with these players. But I think it's a foregone conclusion that those 3 are going to be tagged if you don't get a contract in place, because you're not going to let them hit the market. I mean, another guy we're going to talk about here, Lamar Jackson, he's going to get the tag if they don't get a contract in place. Like, there's just certain players you just know that about. Like, at least for the Chiefs, I feel like Orlando Brown is 100% going to be tagged, right? Even though there's some other like players that you could look at for that squad, he is by far the best player on that team. And with the market being what it is at tackle,
and how hard it is to find a guy.
And how hard it is to find a running back like what these guys can do too. Barkley, Jacobs, Pollard, they're all 25 or younger. So they're still in the prime of their running back careers. They all have proven that they can be solid runners and pass catchers, which is exactly what you need if you're going to be a viable running back from a football and fantasy football perspective. So, I'm 100% with you on the tag situation. I think Kareem Hunt presents the most interesting situation here because we really didn't see him do much last year. He really didn't get a ton of opportunities either, to be honest. Nick Chubb had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, he did.
And I could see it being a situation where, maybe he goes to the Ravens or a team like that, or Chicago, right? A team that's going to be very run-centric. San Francisco, maybe even, if they want to, shell out for him. So, I don't think he's going to command a huge salary necessarily, but he is going to be, I think he'll be an impact player next year.
Yeah. I think that, you named a few places, and if he finds, he'll probably still be a number 2. But I mean, even say Tennessee decides we're going in, we're not cutting all these guys, we're going to go all in. He could be the perfect third down back to a Derrick Henry.
My God.
I mean, could you imagine him being there? Like, they're trying
to have them both on the field at the same time,
and all these guys, like, but you put in like a Kareem Hunt, like the Kareem Hunt Nick Chubb connection, like the way they used him, that was great, and it made both of them fantasy viable in some aspects. Kareem Hunt really kind of saved his career in Cleveland right after all of his legal issues. So if that's the way he goes now, also going to a place like Houston and just being the guy too, right? I mean, Dameon Pierce is there, but maybe you just go and you're the guy. I think that's also an option for him.
Absolutely. I love that. Man, can you imagine Derrick Henry at fullback, Kareem Hunt
at
halfback, running just like a traditional I formation and just down their throat the whole game?
Who are they going to give it to?
That'd be so tough.
All right, let's end with quarterbacks here. Lamar, we already kind of talked. He's going to get the tag. He won't actually end up as a free agent. He may be traded. I think that's still on the table.
That's for sure.
But I don't think he's definitely not going to be a free agent. Baltimore needs to get something for him. There are 2 types of tags. So if you're unaware, there's a franchise tag that exclusively gives you the rights to the player and the contract and all the negotiation. There's also a tag out there that gives other teams an opportunity to, it's almost like a waiver, like put it in a waiver claim, but they are putting in like, this is what we want to offer this player. And if the player wants to accept that, then they have to give the team, I think, 2 or 3 draft picks. I don't remember exactly what that is, but so it'll be interesting.
There's a conversion rate for it, I'm pretty sure.
It'll be interesting if Baltimore goes down that path and just gives that option out there. I think the more logical option is probably going to be they'll tag them, have exclusive rights, and then either figure it out or trade him and just get as many first-round picks back as possible. Geno Smith, after a great season, he's going to be hitting the free agent market. I think Seattle wants him back. I think him going back to Seattle makes the most sense. Daniel Jones probably won't get the tag because we think Saquon will get the tag. So that'll be a little bit interesting. I do know that the Giants came out and said they would like to have Daniel Jones back. He really had a great season this year, and a season he needed to hope continue down a positive path in his career. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's kind of the wild card to me because he could be a starter. He was in the Super Bowl just a few years ago as a starter, and with the Patriots ties, he's got a lot of coaches out there that know him because there's a lot of coaches who are now head coaches, whether it's Josh McDaniels there in Las Vegas, obviously back in San Francisco, or going back to New England as a backup. Who knows there? And then Baker Mayfield. I don't know. I think Baker's season or career's kind of dust. I think he's probably time for him to just accept a backup role, probably. Unless a team gets desperate and just wants to use him as a bridge the gap type, like a Marcus Mariota type,
Sure.
Geno Smith before Geno Smith became good again type, right?
I could see him staying in LA too. It seemed like him and McVay kind of were hitting it off from what you were able to see with their, on-field interactions. So I think
Baker loves the TV, so he could be right there in Hollywood.
Lights of the big city.
That's right. He's right there in Hollywood. Let's get into some hot takes, or let me catch up here. Chicago will be spending a lot of money this offseason. Yeah, I actually like Justin Fields a lot this next year. As long as they keep Justin Fields, right, and if they trade the number one pick to get more assets around him and start to build around Fields, I like Justin Fields a little bit going into next year. I think that fantasy-wise, he had a phenomenal fantasy season this year, and so I'm not going to shy away from moving him up my rankings depending on what Chicago does around him this offseason. Lee says, how can the Ravens not sign Lamar? Tagging him seems like the worst thing they could do because by not paying him now could cost him double next year. Yes, but that's just not the way the NFL works, honestly. Lamar wants, what is it, Deshaun Watson type guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And the Ravens are like, nah, that's not how we play, man.
And he wants more guarantees than Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has his contract fully guaranteed. So they're in a rock and a hard place situation where no matter what choice they make, it's not going to be a great one. They either sign Lamar Jackson, who is a mobile quarterback, has missed some time to this fully guaranteed contract that they're fully locked into, or they tag him and run the risk of him not playing and then, costing them more next year, or they trade him and now they're in a position where they have to rebuild their entire roster. So, that's a tough situation to be in if you're Baltimore. And I think everybody saw this coming eventually just with the way Lamar Jackson plays. Great player, phenomenal player, nothing against him. That's just the way the position works for folks for players that play it the way he does. We saw it with Michael Vick and a few other players where it just doesn't always, you're not always 100%.
Yeah. And I would also say, like, the Ravens are not the Cleveland Browns, right? There's a reason the Ravens are in it every single year. It's a really, really well-ran organization.
They're phenomenal.
They're well-respected. They're very good. They're in the hunt every single year. And there's a reason for that because they make smart business decisions. And this comes down to a business decision, right? And so even if they tag him this year, everybody tags him once. That gives you a whole nother year to figure it out. It's next year's tag that really comes into play. If you have to tag him that second year, that's when it really starts to jump up, and you end up paying him like $100 million for years. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's like stupid money if you tag him 2 years in a row.
Well, it's all about the aggregate of what the other quarterbacks' contracts are for that given year. So that's already in place. And then I think it goes up another 20% or 30%, something like that from what it was the previous season. And so it just stacks up so quick. Yeah. I mean, you'd be exceeding the average.
I don't know what the tag is for him, but I don't think it's as much about this year for Baltimore as it is what Dan said about, the guaranteed money going forward, because even the tag, that's almost like another contract. You're not guaranteed all that money. If you're not playing, they have all these clauses in their contracts of, if you're not playing, you're not getting paid. We actually saw that with Buffalo and the DeMar Hamlin situation, right? They came out and they're like, look, we're paying you your full contract out, right? Because obviously teams don't have to do that when players get injured. You don't have to pay for them. Mm-hmm. If you don't go to work, you don't get paid, right? Like it's kind of the way the NFL is as well.
It's like, think of it like disability, right? If you go on disability, you only get I guess it depends on your company, but sometimes
40,
it's 60%,
60, whatever,
50%. Yeah, it's going to be docked a little bit because you're not actually working, but they still want to take care of you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and when Lamar wants, $45 million a year guaranteed, then it doesn't matter if he gets hurt or not. And I think that's really where they're at. And I think they're they're a long ways away. I think I saw a report of like $100 million away from each other right now.
And I don't know if that's
It's
total
a
value or
messy
the
situation.
guarantees, but
Yeah. Well, I think he wants everything guaranteed. I mean, it's what I've read. He wants a fully guaranteed contract, and that's just probably not going to happen, especially not at that rate. But when the quarterbacks see Deshaun Watson get it, I also can't blame you
precedent
there.
has been set at that point for
Exactly.
it, you know.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk hot takes here, because this Lamar Jackson thing's not over. So we'll have plenty of time this offseason.
Far from it.
Lamar Jackson. Why don't you hit us with your hot take first? What's a hot take you got going in for 2023 or for this offseason, really?
I got two. One of them I already talked about, Keenan Allen or Michael Thomas getting cut. I think if one of them does get cut, I think there's a chance one of them joins the Chiefs. So I'm going Michael Thomas getting cut, coming over to Kansas City and playing. He's already going to get paid a little bit from the Saints. It would make sense for him to take a cheaper deal, maybe a 1 year, kind of like what we did with Juju if we don't land him. Makes a lot of sense to me to take a flyer on a guy like that. The other one is a little more spicy. So Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's my guy. Love Derrick Henry. He is getting closer to that 30-year-old mark. So, and we know what we talked about already.
He is like smashed the actual drop for running backs is 27, and he is like killed it. He's like, I don't care about age.
Anomaly.
I'm a monster.
Yes, he is a true beast, an outlier. He's great. I love having him on my team the last few years in my keeper league. I think it's been 3 years straight that I've had him. We finally won a championship together. And sometimes after you win a championship, you got to make tough decisions. And I think, Titans didn't necessarily do that on the field, but I think there's a chance that with their cap situation being what it is, there's a chance that this new GM, new regime that's coming in the front office, maybe wants to get things a little bit younger, get the cap situation sorted out. And I think a good way to do that would be for them to trade Derrick Henry. I think a trade comes down draft night. Same way they sent off A.J. Brown.
All right.
They'll ship off Derrick Henry in an effort to get younger. And I think Baltimore and Chicago are two viable teams that could reach out to the Titans for his services for a second and a fourth, a third and a fourth, something along those lines to grab him. I think the second is probably the more likely situation. But, I could see that as a possibility for sure.
And, if Chicago trades the number one pick back to the Colts, my money's on the Colts. What are they sitting at, 4 or 5?
Yeah.
So you move back, you probably capture a few more picks anyway. So now you've got something to play with to go get a guy like Derrick Henry to pair with Justin Fields and that crew. So that would be very interesting. I like that. That is very spicy. I would say that much. Very
3
spicy.
out of 4 chili peppers on that one.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. My hot take I got currently, it's not really about where anybody's going or what's going to happen over the next month or two. Maybe on we'll come back together on the 15th. That's the first day of free agency too. So that'll be a perfect day to get back here.
Day that will be
live, talk through all the free agents and how that impacts fantasy wise. But mine's more about next year right now, and I think Jameson Williams is the second year running back you want next year. Everybody's going to talk about Garrett Wilson. Everybody's going to talk about Drake London, Chris Olave. All these guys are great. And I feel like it's kind of similar to couple years back when it was Jefferson and Judy and all those T. Higgins and all those guys. Great class. But I think this class that we just had as a rookie class is also really good, really talented, and very deep. And with all that said, Jameson Williams, we didn't get to see him enough last year. This Detroit offense in general, I think, will be even better next year. And I think you're going to want Jameson Williams as a second-year stud wide receiver next year. He finishes above the rest of them.
Oh, wow.
That's my hot take.
I like that.
Maybe I'm not going to back it up, but I think he can. But I think mostly why you're going to want him is because he's not going to be drafted like these other guys are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he could finish ahead
He's going to
of him,
be
but
a
he's
later
not going to be
round pick.
drafted like
Yeah.
the rest of these guys are. Garrett Wilson, I haven't started my underdog drafting yet, but it's coming very quickly because I've already got that draft itch. And Garrett Wilson, from what I've been seeing, he's going really, really early. And they don't even have a quarterback yet. So wait till he gets Aaron Rodgers and he's going to go even earlier. So Jameson Williams not going to go early. But the guy is a stud.
Rookie of the year, man. That's a lot of hype around him.
What was he? The 10th round pick? I mean, Jameson Williams has a chance to be a stud next year too.
Yeah, I think he was 12th overall, maybe,
yeah,
or was that Olave? I can't remember. But anyway,
they were all right there, right?
Yeah, it was boom, boom, boom. It killed me as a Chiefs fan. I was like, I really wanted to take one of those guys, but we ended up doing
Chiefs
pretty
pass
well.
on Sky Moore to get him later in the draft. I'm like, all right, Brett Veach knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it ended up working out. I like Karlaftis and McDuffie. They're pretty good.
Yeah. What a rookie class.
It's pretty great.
I saw a stat 166 games by rookies.
Yeah.
It was the
I saw that on Twitter
awesome.
too. You know what a fun little correlation for that was? It was the most since the 81 Niners, who started a dynasty after that Super Bowl. And the only team that has more than those two teams was the 74 Steelers, which started a dynasty. Right. So
we're in good company, right?
Knock on wood for that one.
Good company. That's right.
Who are your favorites going into next year? We'll end it on this one here before we wrap the show. A couple players that, it's super early, obviously, but you're already kind of circling them on your board.
So I talked a little bit about Justin Fields earlier, but that's a guy that I'm really, especially if Chicago does the things I think they need to do this offseason. That's going to be a lot of it, right? They've got the cap space. They've got the number 1 overall pick. They've got an opportunity to put a lot of weapons around this guy. And I really think that we saw what he can do with this running ability last year, and they open him up. As long as they keep him and they don't trade him and draft Bryce Young, right? But if he stays in Chicago, he stays the starting quarterback in Chicago. I really like Justin Fields next year. I think that he's got a chance to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback and surprise a lot of people, which he was doing this year. He was well on his way before
he's great
injury towards the end of the year. So I really like Justin Fields and his abilities. Drake London, we talked about Atlanta actually early in the podcast tonight. I like Drake London. I like what Desmond Ridder will potentially bring to this team. I really like this Atlanta Falcons team. I don't think I planned on talking about the Falcons this much tonight, but I like the way they're headed, and I like Drake London, and I compare him to Garrett Wilson. Again, I just think Garrett Wilson is going to fly off the draft boards, and for really, really good reasons. So I think there's a couple of these other second-year guys that aren't going to be as popular going into next year, but still be great. And then I put Cooper Kupp down here. Nobody's talking about Cooper Kupp, and I think he's going to start to fall down draft boards. But if he comes back healthy and Matt Stafford comes back healthy, they're still a phenomenal duo. They just weren't healthy last year. And so if they can come back healthy, I don't see why Cooper Kupp can't, get right back to top 3 wide receiver form in this, this offense. So if he's going to start falling down the draft boards and he starts to become cheap in dynasties, I'm willing to jump on board and try to get me some Cooper Kupp at a cheap price. Tyler, maybe you weren't here last year, but I love the running quarterbacks, and I've already sent a text message to a couple fantasy groups asking who's going to die on the Trey Lance hill with me this year. So I just can't jump on the hill yet because I'm not sure if he's going to play. But
run it back.
If Trey Lance is the starting quarterback, I'm all over it. I'm all over it. Hey, Jared Goff played well this year. That offense was humming, man.
They were doing pretty well. Yeah. Weren't they a top 10 scoring offense?
Yeah, they were great offensively. I don't even care about their defense for fantasy. I don't even care if they win the games. But if you want to put up 35 points
matter
a
to
game, Justin Fields won 3 games last year? I don't care. He helped me get into the playoffs on a couple teams.
He was a great fill-in for Josh Allen. For me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What do you got going on for 2023? Who's some of your early favorites in terms of fantasy football.
Well, we've talked about Garrett Wilson a little bit, so I'll start there just to kind of say that's a guy I'm definitely looking at. I'm waiting on that quarterback situation to play out like we've already kind of talked about, but I am all over Garrett Wilson for next year. I definitely think he's going to take another leap. His first year was great. Second year is going to be even better. Travis Etienne had a phenomenal season this year. Him and Trevor Lawrence, another year together, another year in Doug Peterson's system. I really like Travis Etienne from a running back standpoint. Tony Pollard, he's going to get way more touches next year. I just have a feeling
Tony
about
Pollard.
it. He'll come back from that ankle injury 100%, and I'm ready for him to ball out. And then finally, DeAndre Hopkins. I got my eyes on him.
All right. He's going to be moving teams this year, right?
He's likely going to get traded. They've been shopping him out. I think there's a good chance he goes somewhere, and that's definitely another kind of similar situation, right? Where's he going to go? Who's throwing him the ball? But with D-Hop, traditionally, it hasn't mattered who's throwing him the ball. He gets 1,000 yards plus. He gets his touchdowns, his receptions. Last year, if he had played the full season, he was pacing for over 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. So I think DeAndre Hopkins still has plenty left in the tank. And to the boys.
I was about to say, like, come on into Kansas City, win yourself a ring, DeAndre Hopkins.
I would love to have him here. I think the big thing that they need to figure out is whether or not he wants a contract extension.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and he's up there in age and not necessarily something that, Veach and Reed will go after the old trusty running backs, but they don't really do that with wide receivers.
Nah, not often. Unfortunately, I'd like to see him do it more. But that's just
I'd love to see Hopkins in a Chiefs jersey running the outside while you put Juju in the slot and Kelsey running. You just put MVS on the other side to run wind sprints or something, whatever he does out there. And
any big receiver that can high point a ball like that with Mahomes, it's just something we haven't seen yet, and I am dying for it.
It would be awesome. You get into the goal line situation now, you can throw a fade. Or you can throw it to Kelsey over the middle. You could still run all your, gadget plays.
Screens,
It just opens up a whole new world for that offense. Not necessarily a world that they're desperate to have because the offense is pretty damn good already.
They're still pretty solid.
Add DeAndre Hopkins. That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
Be great. But yeah, those are the guys we're kind of looking at.
Yeah, let's get out of here. Thank you all for being here. Take a couple weeks off, and the chat comes in hot and heavy. The viewers were great. It was I can see the little eyeball raising as we go through. Hopefully, you hit that like button, share the content with anybody you guys know. It just helps us out, helps our show. We'll be here all off season long. We will not be here every week. We already said it earlier. We'll be back on March 15th, the first day of free agency. Catching you guys up on all the free agents that have already signed, what it means for fantasy football, plenty of free agent action, plenty of draft talk coming up. It's going to be an awesome offseason, and I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be our first offseason together for the podcast and really just a first opportunity to bounce ideas off of each other as we're going in our own rookie drafts and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to that. I love rookie drafts. Maybe we'll get on here and do a live one or two, some mock drafting. A lot of options coming up this offseason. So stick with us. Be here. Any Wednesday night, we are here. And, of course, follow me on Twitter at @TrevorS_FF. And we'll make sure to tweet it out anytime we're going to go live.
Absolutely. And, again, I just want to echo that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know football season is not here any longer, but we do appreciate getting this time to share our takes with you, and the support's awesome every single time you guys are on here. It definitely makes the show a lot more fun to do. But check us out at ADP podcast _SR, our presenting sponsor at Stadium Rant HQ. Follow them up. A lot of great content coming out of there. And then of course you can follow me at Dan _TF40. and the other show that I do at the fastest_40 on Twitter. Trey and myself, we just recorded a little roundtable. We'll be having a season recap episode dropping this weekend, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And appreciate everyone for joining us here, man. It's going to be an awesome offseason, and I'm ready for it. Peace.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where. I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them